Right. Thank you for having me, and also welcome all the listeners out there if you're listening through the web. Okay, I'm from Sweden, so it's I'm gonna be, in a way, I'm not gonna be that philosophical. I'm gonna be more technical in what we do, but I will just start with to say that Sweden is a social welfare state. Okay. Which means that we have a lot of collaboration between the different state agencies, especially the municipalities, the academic community, the research community, and the consultants. Which means that we do get projects that are funded for specific reason that comes straightly from the government. The top government. And of course, carbon has been a key issue. But before that, I just want to see where I come from. And I'm a geographer. And actually, I'm also an older guy. I got my master's at the University of Oregon in 1980 to 82. And you can see here, GIS was not even invented then, or it just got invented. So my background is actually in urban geography, urban morphology for you that we won't go into it, but it's a part of urban geography, but also in urban and regional planning, because you get projects that you work with. And but then I moved when GIS came in the late 80s. We got GIS, and I moved in the early 90s, and we were part of this community called GIS and Business. They had a lot of conferences, maybe some long time ago. They had like a magazine called GIS and Business, but then it went into it called Business Geographics. I think it was like for 4 or 5 years. At the end of the 90s. GIS has moved into mainstream in a way. But what we saw then, was that GIS and Business was very good or very suitable, I should say, for transportation. And both in what we're going to see today in the public sector, but also in the private sector. And my work, I'm not an algorithm guy. I work more, since I'm a cultural geographer, I should say. Yeah. I work with the management part, management consulting. So for like, I've been in and out of business, but I had my own consulting firm between early 90s to about late 00. And still being like, at the same time, being in the academic community. But since 2010, I'm back in R&D. Might next year I go back into business. We will see. But this is kind of the interaction we have, and we are kind of fortunate of having that. Sweden is a small country, 10 million people. We just surpassed 10 million people, and it's very manageable in that respect. But so now I'm going to go in and give some background. And we can see here, first up is a lot of trucks. And Sweden is unique in another way. We have 2 large truck manufacturers. One is Volvo. And Volvo has, they are in America. They also own one of the others. They bought one of the other big, I can't really recall which one it is now. But Scania is as big. It's just been bought by Volkswagen, but they are not in America, but they're big in Asia and South America and in Europe. But of course, I would say Volvo is the largest company in Sweden. So one say in Sweden, when things are going good for Volvo, it goes good for Sweden. But of course, Volvo, their objective is to sell trucks. And here comes in the carbon issue. And if we look at now where the development has gone, we can say 56% has gone into better engine or improving the engine. We have a lot of this biofuels and so on, but only 6% have gone into systems. And not to be, since I'm recorder today, not to be too outspoken, we can say though still, and this is what we tell Volvo and Scania, you think too much technical and too little in systems. Okay, but that's my view. Now we go into what we're going to talk about today, and we have to differ between what is city logistics. You're going to see in the end here, I've been going to the same conferences as Miguel. It's the Institute of City Logistics, because I think it's a very good forum. But and we have a lot of different city logistics measures. I'm not going to go in here, but you can see in this slide where the measures start, you know, from more of on the public side, coming over here to fleet coordination, mixed loading of goods, and route optimization. Okay, and then we are on the private side. So what we're going to talk about today is this part. Okay, I shouldn't do that. It's the second one, and it's the municipality as a transport buyer. And as you can see there, 6% of all the food sold in Sweden is bought by the public, because we do have the largest social welfare sector in the world. And what we're talking about is schools, preschools, hospitals, elderly care. We have a lot of elderly care, and others, prisons and so on. So actually just to get this in perspective, is that the municipality have up to year 2000, they've been procuring goods. And it's, of course, it's not just groceries, it's office supplies and all these others also. But you do it by free delivery, which means that each supplier comes with his own truck. Okay? So the notion here is what you do is that you that the suppliers deliver to a terminal, to like a freight consolidation center or an urban consolidation center. And in order to do that, we have to change the procurement process. So you procure the goods and separate from the transport. And this is the new thing. And if you look at the transport business model, the traditional one, so it's like we can have it's divided. So 85% of all the goods transported in Sweden is coming through a freight forward or a carrier. And then we have many independent truckers. 60% of all the trucks are independently owned in Sweden. So if we look at why did one do this? Okay. So we have some driving forces for change, we call it that. From the beginning, you can see here it was especially environmental impact and carbon, and which will be decreased by up to 80%. And we have, of course, we have research on this. We have stats and so on, so we can prove that. But it's also in the large cities of Stockholm and Gothenburg who are just now starting projects in this, in the co-distribution of goods. There is we have a big problem with the accessibility, and we have too many trucks on the streets, Because what's happening in these cities is that they're getting densified, like many cities all over the world. And densifying means that more people are moving in, less space for moving goods in and waste out. I mean, it's simple, right? But equally important is that we have a movement towards where, I mean, moving, a lot of the, especially the groceries, well, we talk about the groceries, I mean, that they are moved all over the world today in this global scheme. And there is now a strong movement among politicians to use local produced goods, foodstuff. So this is a very strong driving force. Plus, of course, what you want to do is that you want to increase the efficiency in the municipal supply chain. So what's happened? Okay, we can see that it started in 1999. By 2016, 39 of 290 municipalities have implemented. And of course, what's happening is we are start in the development phase, and I'm going to talk about this now. What's happening with the development? So it has really what's happening is that this whole procurement process has been digitized, and especially two things. One is e-commerce. It's the same thing that when you go and buy something from Amazon. The same thing is that the municipalities are using a procurement system. A buying system, which is but what it's connected to the procurement process, but also to follow up. It's a control system, you can say. And the other one is logistics, route optimization. And that is basically that the municipalities take over the logistics from the freight forwarder or carrier. And of course, this makes it pretty radical business model, right? It's a radical innovation. And it will change the business model of the actors, the stakeholders. And especially here, I talked about, that we want to have more suppliers from the local area. Today we have more than half of all of these 6% of all in Sweden bought. It comes from two large wholesalers. And now they're down to 54%, but they used to have like 60, 70%. And that's mainly imported food. And here we can see all this is in the papers, but what we can see here is what's in its way of happening. It's like we had the first one in 1999, and then the second one was like in 2006 and 2007. But in the first decade we had 7 implementations. Then the next half decade or 4 years we got 10. But you can see here now this is starting to take on. And I'm going to come back to what the initiatives are from the government, because the government support this from left to right in Sweden, if we talk about political parties. We can see here we predict by 2021 that we will have more than 100 implementations, that we will have a third of the Swedish municipalities doing this, which means that in 20 years we have changed the way that municipalities do procure, how they invoice, and so on. Also, what's happening is that Sweden has, as I said, 10 million people. We have 290 municipalities. The median municipality, the number 145. I'm not going to ask you, how large that is, because that's a rhetoric question. But so I'm telling it straight away. It's only about 16,000 people. That means that 145 municipalities has less than 16,000 people, which means that they have to work in clusters. They have to collaborate. So most of these implementation, 28 out of 39, are in clusters, where you have one large municipality usually that take care of the procurement process, and the smaller one have to buy into that. Okay, coming into the development, so we have 3 levels. We have just the rudimentary model, the Borlänge model of the municipality that started this. We have, when e-commerce was introduced, and then we have this more advanced, which I have taken part of. The first slide was a book I wrote about this, and it was the whole development is based on what we call action research. That is like we as researchers work with the municipalities to try to find a new business model. It's a bit of a trial and error. And I don't know how much action research is used over in America. I think it's in some areas. I think inside the public, is that so? Yeah, but I think it's a very. Well, I'm sorry I didn't do it earlier, because it's also very fun, Here's a lot of things, but this I can tell you about, what the e-commerce. The e-commerce is a standard which all which the government, the Swedish government, have decided, or an agency that they have, which means that now we have about 54. I think we have 54 state agencies or authorities. They are, since 2005, they have all their procurement has to do, and also the buying process has to be digital, and it has to follow e-commerce, and it has to follow this SFTI standard. Municipalities are not there yet, but we think around 2020 it's going to be mandatory for them too. Right now, about half of Swedish municipalities do have e-commerce. What are the benefits? Yeah, well, there are very large benefits, and that's the control. Because the problem is that if you have, say that you have a wholesaler. This wholesaler has 20,000 products. Only 1,500 are procured. But if you by some reason don't know, or you don't follow actually what I say agenda, and this is not of ill will, it's usually because you don't know. I mean, we need education in this, Then the municipality is losing money, because these products are much more highly priced than the others. And the e-commerce, the digital procurement process, buying process, we can control this. We can control the behavior. We can follow up, and we can save taxpayers' money. The other part, which I'm going to get into more here, and what I'm going to show, because it's more in urban freight and urban logistics, is the logistics part. And what we have the Swedish Public Procurement Act. We got into EU in 1992, and then EU has a Procurement Act for all member states. This Procurement Act was refined 2008 and really got things straightened up. I mean now there's the regulatory framework for procurement is really stringent. But if you go back then to how we can change then the procurement process on the transportation side, because if you remember one of my first slides here, what's happening is that what you do is that you procure a terminal, an urban freight consolidation center, vehicles, and also the people working on the terminal. Then comes the big issue. Who is going to do the logistics? And this has been a key part, because even though Swedish municipalities has a lot of staff, they don't have any experts in logistics. I just said here to Miguel earlier that if you go back to my hometown, Gothenburg, we have 200 people working with public transport. We have 30 people working with bicycling and pedestrians and so on. There's 2 people working with urban freight. And I think this is pretty much like it is all over the world. So the easy way out, of course, is that you also outsource the logistics. And that's what we're going to see here. That's most of the municipalities have done that. And that means that you have, what you do is you leave the logistics to the trucking company, and they get paid by stop, which is like very hard to follow up. We don't know how far they travel, how many trucks they use, and so on. The other one is that we've been working with something called inverted invoicing, and that's or inverted or reversed billing is another term used. And it's like we put in a little black box in the truck that measure exactly how much they travel, and then they get paid after that. And I'm going to show how now that this is part of well, this is the latest development, and this is what we try to now get. Well, what I'm going to come back to that at the end. But what was happening is we were just getting funded in a project funded by the government, to start education among municipalities, and this is like through the agencies, So we will get logistics knowledge in municipalities. They should be self-sufficient is the goal, because here is also a lot of money, but 20% of the taxpayers' money to be saved. Okay, we go. We skip these because we're getting into. So I'll go into this example now. And this is an area. You have 3 municipalities here on the furthest to the right, and they have 62,000 in inhabitants. They buy for 60 million a year, yes, dollars a year. So it's a lot of money. You can see here the two last bullet points. Before, with free delivery, they had about 26,000 deliveries. The way when we changed this, it's down to 7,000. And now it's down to 6,000 because we refined the system. So what happens is that what you have to do is the procurement process. This is taking straight from the digital procurement, computerized procurement, which also the municipality has to do. I mean, they has to use. And we have three of these these three municipalities, Ystad, Tomelilla, and Simrishamn. You can see the up there. And what we do have, we used route optimization. And what you can see there, maybe I'd go like this now. Oh yeah. Here we have these three municipalities. We did, depending, the key here, I think that was another slide I forgot to say. The key is, where will the terminal be located? And if we use this, if we use route optimization beforehand, we can see that this city, or this is the large city of these three. They have about 50% of all the inhabitants. That means that they also have 50% of all the deliveries. They get an index of 780 kilometers. This one gets about, it's very close to the other one, and it's more centrally located. If we go back, you can see Tomelilla there. It's in the middle. They have about 8% more in vehicle kilometers of travel, VKT. But this one, the one furthest out here it is located. It has 20% more. That, okay, what does that mean? That means if the first one will give a price per kilometer, procurement, of 10 crowns, then the one to beat that, because that's it's always lowest priced that is going to get the contract. To beat that, the second one has to do a price of 930, and the one furthest to the right, 770. Okay, so this is an environmental rebate, and this is one thing that we had to challenge the EU directive. But the municipality can do that because of environment. You're with me? Yes? Okay. And another thing is that here you don't need to, but this is the one which we did the procurement process, and you can see that the bids were very close, from 2.6 to 3.2. As I said there, we have here's another one municipality with the traditional first Borlänge model. You can see we have a spread of tender from 3.8 million to 9.2. That's 100. I think it's 146%. What does that say us? Neither the municipality who made the procurement, nor these four different transport companies knew anything what they were buying, right? But here, since we can really govern this, we have price per VKT, price per hour, and price per goods. Okay? So this is what's happening when you're using this model. And this is the radical innovation, if we talk Christensen and these guys, the business model guys, is that the transport buyer, the municipality, takes control of the logistics. Do you think the transport company in Sweden likes that? Good. But also, really, when we use route optimization, and okay, I use the term route optimization, but of course it's software. using vehicle routing algorithms, but they are standardized. They are commercial software, and they are used. It takes a person about 2 weeks to learn it. But of course, then you had to set up the system and so on. So that's a little more. But it's no more, and that's our objective to make the municipalities learn this. Okay. But then the main thing that we have developed is the procurement process per se. How can we do? How will the tender go by? The tender documents and so on. That's been the big job. The vehicle routing part is the easy one. But then, of course, you can see also here we get an environmental impact decrease, which is more when we use the more advanced model. I'm going to go back here. Let's see. Here we can see that here's kind of key figures, business models, and stakeholders. Okay, so we have 3 different types of business model here for the transportation. We have the free delivery, and you can see, and then we have the Borlänge model, the traditional model, where also the transporter use or we outsource the logistics, right? And then we have the very advanced model. Okay, and then you can see, power supply chain, transporter, municipality. Okay. Transport efficiency, digital planning, transparency, delivery accuracy. All these you can see. We are increasing, and this is something that it took us a long time. We worked for about 3 years with this action research before we got here. So what's happening now is that the only thing, this is in Swedish because it's a Swedish homepage, but here, 4th of May this year, we had a national conference with about 35, 40 municipalities, and at that time we also got money, to do that conference, but also to start up a network. And this is like it's not money that you need to it's not like what do you do? You do tender. It's money that had been pinpointed for the purpose. And I think we're going to have another conference now, the 15th of November, where also these different agencies will be in. And what we want to do is to establish, what should I say, support office for the municipalities, with about 5-6 people, and also get research people in. I think it's going to be, it's feasible. It's going to be, and we need it in order to get this whole idea, or this whole way, the code to get the co-distribution of goods to really reach the height it could go. Okay, so but now we come in what's happening, and when the politicians have seen this, we come in on a very touchy issue, and that's, we could call it regulation of urban freight. Also the urban freight that the private enterprise does. And we have initiated, this is one bill from 2015. You can read yourself, but it says here, allowing municipalities to introduce mandatory co-distribution of goods even for non-municipal receptors within parts or throughout the municipality. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. The only I can say is it's a road that is not explored yet, and we're going to explore it. We have worked with this, for a long time, trying to get the procurement process of this more advanced model based on route optimization and get it into a model for the private enterprise. Not mandatory at all, just a model that they can use. And which means that the transport buyer is the one that really has to change his way of doing the procurement. And if I should be saying, you know, really taking it seriously. Not that they've done that before, but if we are going to be able to be more efficient, we also have to control it. We have to control what the transport sector does. Okay, so okay, it's very interesting to see what your PowerPoints do to you. But this, what you need is much more time. It takes much more time because we have to work. Let's see what this one is. Okay, we have to work with. We have to work in 5 steps. I think maybe if I go straight to this one, you can see here. This is the 5-step model, okay? And it goes, and it's about the same. What we do in the start, we have to use, you know, we have to put GPSs in the trucks so we get some data capture. Then we do a baseline. Then we know how it works today, right? Then we do simulations to do it better, you know. And I'm going to show you an example of what happened here. It's stunning. Then we go into the procurement process, and we have these new routes, and those are the new routes. Those are the one they're going to use in the procurement process, okay? In the same way as we did for the municipalities. It's a price per kilometer, price per hour, and price per kilo. And then the most important part here is the step 4, open book pricing or open book accounting. Because here what we have is that we have these routes. We know exactly what the transport load is, you know, for this network, transport network. And what we discuss then is how much you should get for kilometers, per hour, and per kilo. And of course, it's much easier in the private enterprise because the private enterprise owns that process. The municipality has to, I mean, they are governed by the Swedish Public Procurement Act, okay? And let's see where we are here. Yeah, but we need as you can see, we need time to do this. And here is I think it's almost the last slide. We can see here is the first implementation. And we can see some of these figures are astonishing. Okay. For example, number of routes decreased from 18 to 13, okay? You can see? And like I say, this is the deliveries here is to 324 pharmacies in the greater Stockholm area. And this is a true case. We can also see that the tours decreased, but we can see a significant decrease in VQT, right? We can see also in time. So how can we do that? How can you explain that? Yeah, these two here explain that. We increased the fill rate from 53% to 87%, which means that each tour or each route have 18, goes from 18 to 25 deliveries. Okay? right now, we are where we can do this for static routes, because we need data. But with big data, in future, we're going to do it with dynamic routes. We're going to be able to do it with consolidation. Okay, so this, I think my 40 minutes were up. So there are three articles on this, and as I said, I choose to, or we choose to go to this city logistics, where we also publish them afterwards. And so you have them here if you want to get further into the subject. Okay? So do we open up for questions?
Okay, we don't need it. So.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
So I guess my question is there any accommodation for prioritization of goods delivery between municipalities?
No, what was it? Is it any?
Prioritization between goods delivery between municipalities. For example, if you had a delivery going to like a school versus like a delivery that was supposed to be made last week to like a care home or something like that, how do you guys decide which one is, I guess, is there a process for that?
Well, see, very good question. Because what that comes down to this, that's why we created the advanced model. Because if you outsource the logistics, who's going to do that prioritization? Right? It's going to be the transporter. And a couple of things, the transporter has no knowledge of the how the municipality works. We have done this. We have asked the municipalities, all the kitchens and so on, no, this is the kitchen, school kitchens and other kitchens, when do you want your groceries delivered? 80% want to have it delivered, Monday morning or Tuesday morning. Then it comes to, okay, who is going to do that prioritization? No, of course, we say it's going to be the municipal. The people that are buying this. I mean, the people in charge of the menu and so on. Because they are and when they get that, I mean, what's happening is that the kitchen get it at time slot exactly, when they will get it. And a couple of things. One thing is that they will never go back to the old system, because now they know 10 o'clock on Wednesday the truck will come, and it's only one truck. So we can allocate some person that takes care of the incoming groceries. Okay. Before it was ad hoc. Also in this, if it's like the transporter that decides how the routes are, it's also going to be ad hoc. So they say they will not go back, So for us, it's of course it's self-evident who's in it, but if you ask the transport company, maybe he thinks he should do it, but. Yes.
Have the drivers themselves been surveyed to see how this affects their work day?
Sure. Not sure that it's been surveyed, but sure it affects the workday. It comes down to that actually, driving a truck is a very rudimentary service. And when we do the logistics in-house, there's two things we get with it. We get, we get like precision, okay? But that's also a precision for the driver. I mean, he doesn't need to stress. Because, I mean, we we have to, of course, calibrate these routes, you know. So you know, but on the other hand, of course, he cannot do anything besides. But it comes down to, I like a term, I don't know if you heard, but like in the public sector, you use a term called a loosely coupled system. And the reason why it's loosely is it's not predictable. But a distribution route is very predictable. But the transport industry have I mean, well, but what I think, to answer your question, I think they like it, you know. I think so.
There's a question from one of the online viewers.
Okay.
Have these in Sweden or not, but have you had to deal with the freight trucking industry lobby? Yeah. How did they react to all these changes?
Well, do you think they love me? No, we shouldn't go into that. But that's, of course, there's friction. Anytime you do change, it's friction. But frictions is also what I say, you know, if we make, if you have this loosely coupled system, and I mean, what really is a loosely coupled system is like remodeling a bathroom. Because you don't know what's back there. I mean, it's very hard to know how much work it's going to take, you know. However, and in a tightly coupled system, that's like a factory process for like chemicals or whatever, you know, that goes 24 hours a day, you know. But when we use digitization and these what I would say control instruments. I mean, we have a black box in the trucks. We don't deny that. We make the system much more predictable. And at the end of the day, as you say in the English language, it will decrease friction. It will decrease stress. Yes.
So as part of the route optimization of this business model, do you all also include infrastructure improvements in the cities for better access? You have fewer trucks, but do you also need to improve loading zones or loading docks or time of day deliveries? Is that a part of the business model as well?
Well, it is, but still, I mean, the municipalities own all the loading zones and loading docks because it's on their property. But we do have a problem with that, and that's friction inside the municipalities. Not everyone in the municipalities like this either. You know, it's a big change, especially the e-commerce bit. It's a big change. You know, so for this viewer, I think most of the friction has been from inside the municipality.
My question is, maybe you can explain more about, in the whole chain and process, who owns what? Because sure, an order is placed and, let's say, half a truckload of some kind of food for some nursing home, for example. So who owns that? Ideally it's the manufacturer, but then as it moves, it has to go to some warehouse or some place. Who owns that, warehouse, and who operates, who pays the salaries for that in terms of loading the trucks and organizing all that?
All that is, okay, all that is procured. Did I have a slide? No, I can.
Private or is public? So maybe you can explain what part is public and what part is private in the scheme.
Yeah. So we have the suppliers, okay? Up to the UCC, they are responsible, okay? But from the UCC, the municipality is responsible, and because they have a legal agreement here. this is the UCC, and this is also the trucks. It's procured. And also the people in the UCC, you know, it's also procured. But the responsibility is, of course, the municipality, since they pay for this service.
Consolidation system, they just pay for it.
Okay, I had one slide in there. We have, out of these 39, there are three municipalities that own the terminal, because they had a terminal. And they have, 2 of those have their own employees. But then everyone, you know, procure the trucks. But those who has their own employees, they have the most financial difficulties, because there is also like this. I mean, a municipality, even though you own that, you could never, and this is part of the Swedish law. I mean, they cannot do anything that is not that is outside the municipality. I mean, and they cannot go out on the open market and compete with the open market. So the best way is to procure this part, but to, as I said, you know, to keep the logistics inside. That's where you get the most efficiency wins. But we have, I mean, there are some people that goes like this. I mean, the statement is, no, but of course the transport industry should do the logistics, because they're doing it for a long time and they know the best.
The trucks and the drivers the trucks are owned by the private company,
Yeah.
and the driver is also paid by a
Private
private company, and the municipality only pays the kind of the transporter.
Yeah,
That's not
it's usually a carrier, you know, that owes this, and he could have, you know, subcontractors, but the municipality, they procure the whole kit. And here, see, and this of course, this is what when we get these 5 here, suppliers, and we had 5 trucks, and only these large wholesaler can get a higher fill rate. The other one has the fill rate of 10-20%, because the only customer they have is the municipality. I mean, then we take out these, right?
So my question is, when you present these things in Sweden, you know, what is the most common criticism from the other side that doesn't like it? What is the usual argument? That what do they say that why this may not be a good idea? Why? What do they argue?
Well, the one that are most criticizing is not the transport industry, because they are not so organized. It is the food industry, these big wholesalers. Because when we go in a municipality, we can increase. I'll give you an example. We had one municipality who had only 2 or 3 suppliers of food, which means they had, of course, only 2 trucks. But when they did this procurement process and really, you know, prioritized the local producers, they got 17. So with free delivery, we would have had 17 trucks. And that was so. Besides we do this, these 2 political driving forces are going to clash, right? If we don't do a solution like this. And of course, when we go in municipality, the wholesaler lose about 25% of his business. That's a lot of friction, right? Yes?
You mentioned big data for more dynamic models in the future.
Yeah.
Which data do you need? Is it coming from the trucks, the suppliers, the businesses that are receiving it, the municipalities? What type of data is needed for that more dynamic model? And where
Well, if you, I mean, if you have a dynamic model, you have, it has to be between the suppliers and the receivers. Because, for example, like in some office supplies, you can order up to 5 o'clock. That means that we have very short time to do a dynamic route, right? Before the next morning. Plus, we have to also optimize the loading, right? But if we can have, for example, RFID tags and whatever we have in the future, you know, where we can scan everything, we can do this modeling very easy. The hardest part for this is, of course, when we have consolidation of goods, which we need. That's the big. I mean, everyone is talking right now about Uberification, Cargomatic, and all these companies, you know. But that's very simple type of transport networks. The hard ones we have is the one of consolidation in urban areas. And in Sweden, in generally, I would say like in Northern Europe, probably also Germany, we have in this segment, we have like a fill rate of 20-30%. But we don't have much studies on it. But it's coming. But also if all these suppliers or shippers, I should say, shippers, if they are connected in a connected system, and we can very easily track incoming goods, we can also have, you know, scenarios on these terminals, you know, where we can consolidate. But we cannot consolidate if not everyone is connected, and that's connected in the whole chain. But it will come. 5, 10 years, but it will come.
Okay, I think we ran out of time. Thanks, Dr. or Professor Moen again. Great, thank you.